Hello and welcome back. This is my second video guide on Cura supports. A big thank you to everyone who watched my first video. It was my first attempt at video editing, so bear with me as I'm still learning. In this video, we'll dive deeper into support settings to understand them better. And stick around until the end. I'll show you a quick process of printing a Gollum bust from The Lord of the Rings in glow-in-the-dark filament. Let's get started. If you watched my last video, you might remember some key settings I went over, like branch density, support overhang angle, support wall line count, support interface, and a few others. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure to check it out so you're up to speed. Now let's dive into part 2 of the 3D supports nightmare. We all know removing supports can be a real challenge, especially if you're new to the 3D printing world. Don't worry, I'm here to help. In this video, we'll focus on a few key settings: support structure, support overhang angle, branch and trunk diameter, optimal branch range, and maximum branch angle. Let's break them down for a better understanding. First up, we have support structures. Personally, I always choose tree supports. They're a great option once you dial in the right settings, saving both time and material. Let's slice this Gollum bust and take a closer look at how tree supports work. Here we can see the tree supports holding the model in a few key places. But how do we know where these supports will be generated? Let's go back to the Prepare screen. Here, you'll notice red marks on the model, just like I explained in my previous video. These marks show where tree supports will be placed to hold your print. To adjust this, go to the Support Overhang Angle setting. Lowering the angle generates more supports, as it reduces the model's printable structure without support. Increasing the angle does the opposite, reducing supports by allowing steeper overhangs to print unsupported. But how do you know which overhang angle to choose? The answer lies in testing. If you're using Cura, you can find useful test prints under extensions greater than part for calibration. Look for the overhang test. There are plenty of other test towers available online as well. Keep in mind that different layer heights, temperatures, print speeds, and fan speeds can all affect your overhang angle tolerance. We'll dive deeper into those factors in future videos. After running tests, you'll discover the angle that works best for your setup. For me, 60% works well with a 0.15mm layer height. If you're just starting out, I recommend trying 50% and adjusting as you gain more experience with different models. Now, let's talk about branch and trunk diameters. The trunk starts at the base of the tree support, and its diameter is crucial to prevent the support from failing mid-print. My personal rule is simple. For prints up to 15 centimeters tall, I use a 10mm trunk diameter. For 20 centimeter prints, I go with 15 millimeters, and so on. This is just a guideline. You'll need to adjust based on the complexity of your model. As for branch diameter, this refers to the tips of the branches. They don't need to be too wide if you're using a support interface, which I covered in my last video. I usually set it to 3 millimeters, occasionally increasing it to 5 millimeters for models around 25 centimeters tall, though that's rarely necessary. Finding the right balance will depend on your specific print and settings, but these tips should help you get started. Have you learned something new so far? If you found any of the information in this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. Your support helps me create more content just like this. Now, let's talk about our last setting for today, the optimal branch angle. This setting controls the length of your branches, from the tip all the way to the trunk. Lowering the number makes the support sturdier, but it will create more trunks rather than fewer trunks with more branches. If you want to reduce the number of trunks, increasing the maximum branch angle can help, but keep in mind that doing so raises the risk of support failure. I usually keep the setting between 50 to 55. Let's take a look at the optimal branch range setting. We'll reduce it slightly so you can see the difference it makes. This small adjustment can have a big impact, so pay close attention. As you can see, after reslicing the model, we now have more tree supports generated. This is because the branch lengths have been reduced, so they can no longer reach low enough to connect to a single trunk. If you increase the range number, you'll have fewer trunks, as I mentioned earlier, but keep in mind that the risk of support failure will also rise. That's the last setting I wanted to cover today. I hope you found this helpful. As promised, at the end of the video, you'll get a look at the fully printed 3D Gollum bust, made with SUNLU glow-in-the-dark blue filament, using my first and only printer, the SUNLU SV06 Plus with a clipper screen. Enjoy the rest of the video, and if you haven't already, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.